All right, don't know how to start this, so we're starting.
Yeah.
I guess quick rundown of yourself, jiu-jitsu wise. You're brown belt now, correct?
Yes, I'm a brown belt. I train. I don't know. I don't have an instructor now, technically. I train with Brian, and I also go around train with a bunch of friends. I train at Jim Miller's gym sometimes.
You also instruct.
Yeah, I teach a lot of classes now. Pretty much all the classes that are going on.
Let's get this a little bit closer to your face there.
Middletown. We we're following the guidelines and we're open right now, but it's like,
what are the guidelines?
Reduced capacity,
which it's already weird to begin with when you consider the fact that jiu-jitsu is actually like full on contact. It's not like hitting a bag.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, who's to say what the capacity actually is? Like, just because we could have 50 people in a class, like, we've never had that. We've had
some pretty big classes, but yeah,
we've had, so like when Henzo came into the seminar, we had like 90 people on the mat, but like, is that capacity? Like, who defines what the capacity is? That's the real thing. So if we say, oh, our normal capacity is 90 because we fit 90 on the mat before, then like 25% of that is just about 20.
So it's like a normal class.
Yeah.
There's no guidelines in terms of like the physical touching. That seems like the weirdest part about it.
Yeah. So as far as I know, no, I don't know all the restrictions, but I know that we've been doing it anyway. And basically it's like, oh, you can sit on the side and not roll, or you could have a specific partner that you want to roll with or not. And if you just want to come and watch technique, that's fine. You can leave right after technique's done. But it's up to your discretion.
Waste of money.
Yeah.
Just gonna pay to watch you guys do shit. That sounds good. You can just watch YouTube at that point.
There's a bunch of free instructionals that everybody put out for the quarantine.
There's already a bunch of free ones before that too.
Yeah, on YouTube.
There's a ton of guys. Like that one dude, I always forget his name because I'm horrible with names, but he's the bald guy.
Stephan.
Yeah, he's he's been putting out YouTube content for.
He's annoying now.
Is he?
Oh, he's full on like propagandist for the disease shit.
Oh, like he's saying it's real, or he's against it being real?
No, he's like, we need to lock down for another 12 months kind of guy. Like, I don't know if he's actually saying that, but the vibe I get from what he's posting, like every single post, it's to shout down anybody who has any disagreements with what the
CDC says. WHO is the worst.
Yeah. And so now his thing is the masks, people who are denying that masks work. Meanwhile, like, he's saying like, oh, find a study that shows that they don't work. The studies that he's using are studies that are done in controlled environments in hospitals where there's not a lot of movement and not a lot of touching of the masks.
Everyday people.
In those prime conditions, yes, masks work 100%. But in conditions where it's normal people who don't know and aren't using the masks properly,
or you're walking in and out of a subway,
and it's cloth masks. The one thing that fucking irritates me is that nobody's asking Fauci, because Fauci's biggest thing is, oh, we didn't tell people that masks worked back then because we were trying to preserve PPE for the medical teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But why not tell people back then that you can wear cloth masks? Cloth masks all of a sudden work when back then they weren't working. That wouldn't have taken away from PPE.
Like the at-home
Everybody
mask.
just wear a bandana. Oh, okay, if that's good enough.
Well, not to mention, like, you could just also break everything down to like how capitalism works. The second mask became a thing, everyone started making masks.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you just said that masks work, businesses would have been like, oh, let's make cool looking masks. Like, they had Tiger King masks. They had.
Well, people are already. The thing is even when they said that masks don't work, companies were just fucking shooting out masks anyway.
I have like 5 masks now. I have like the Under Armour type material ones, which I'm sure don't do anything. But they are way more comfortable and they don't fog up my glasses as much.
I spent $30 on 10 ones that are just made up of cut up t-shirt material and like really thin cut up t-shirt material. I was so pissed because it was like this jiu-jitsu company comes and they're like, oh, we're making masks and face coverings. And I was like, all right. And they had like ones that have, you can put in like a filter material in it, and it's like $20 for the mask and then $5 for the filter material. And I was like, I could get that, or I could get these 10 face coverings for $27. And I was like, I'll get the 10 face coverings. They look pretty comfortable. Like it looked pretty good quality. I get them. And I'm like, I could have made these with a $5 t-shirt from Walmart, and it would have been thicker material and just as comfortable. And I emailed them. I was so pissed. And then the next week they reduced the price on them from 27 from 27 to $17. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, I spent $30 on this bullshit, and then you reduce the price. And they're like, oh, well, we're using a new company now, and the material's cheaper. And I was like, fuck you.
Was pretty cheap.
The materials are cheap still.
I couldn't imagine like if an actual jiu-jitsu like gi company started making them, like Fuji, and like it was made out of like gi material, like you'd never be able to breathe.
Yeah, that would be, well, and that's the purpose of a gi, is you're supposed to cover people's face with it and
that's
try
what I
to rip their heads off.
I try to waterboard them with it. If I start sweating
like crazy.
I sweat easy, so once I start sweating, it's like a fountain.
Yeah. There's always that one guy in the gym that sweats like insanely. Like back when you were there, Raul was the one, but now we have a new guy, Aldo. I don't know if you've met Aldo.
Heard the name, I think.
Yeah, he's a doctor over at ORMC, but he's a sweat guy, like insane, like the first and second roll, and you're like, dude, how are you sweating more than I've sweat in like a full on like entire class?
That's how I get. I don't know what it's.
I don't
like,
remember you sweating that much. I remember you, like you're a big sweaty guy, but
it's just like once I start sweating, it doesn't stop. Like even after I'm done working out, I could take a shower and I get out and I'm still sweating.
I've been there before, especially when it's a hot day. Like when I train at Miller Brothers, they have showers there, and like, you know, we'll finish training, but there's no AC there, and I go straight into the shower, and then after the shower, I like get out, and I'm like, oh, it's just the water, and then I dry off, and then all of a sudden, like I'm covered in water again. I'm like, what the fuck? It's sweat.
I can't stand that. I hate if I get out of the shower and I start sweating. I just feel like I should have taken a shower. I hate that feeling more than anything.
Yeah, like take another one. That's
Well, back on like the mask stuff. I saw this a while ago and I shared it. It was actually the director of the CDC had said that currently opiate overdoses and suicides are killing more young people by a substantial number than the coronavirus. And then I had people telling me I need to like listen to the CDC and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but this is the director of the CDC. So they were like sending me articles from the CDC and then telling me that this guy's a fucking idiot. But it's like, you're telling me to listen to his shit while also telling me not to listen to him. It's like people are just choosing what to believe.
Yeah. And it's frustrating because I don't post much of anything anymore.
Because it just causes fights.
Yeah, exactly. The only things I'll do is I'll just post pictures with no context. I'll just take screenshots of Sweden's numbers and it's just like.
Well, I saw you post something about them the other day too, and then
New Zealand was
the
thing, because now they're pushing back the election, and every liberal friend of mine is like, "Oh, we should have just been like New Zealand." I have like a hardcore liberal friend so he posted a video of the. This is before the BLM stuff started happening. He posted a video of people protesting the masks, and somebody commented on it, and their comment was, "Oh, I don't see many POC in this video." And I was looking through the video, I found one, and I took a screenshot and I posted it on a comment, and it turned into a whole big thing. And his reply, instead of condemning the guy who was calling me a piece of shit because I found the one person of color in the video, and I just like, you know, it was like a troll. It wasn't anything serious. I wasn't like, oh, this debate debunks your whole point.
Well, also just like you said, there weren't any and there was. So
yeah.
It's just
he's like, that could be a white person with curly hair. I was like, no, they clearly have dark skin and like features of a black person. Like, you can't deny that just because like you don't know their history. Yeah. So then his thing to me was, you shouldn't have said that. You know how this disease is disproportionately affecting people of color. And I was like, what? What does
It
that have to
does
do with
apparently, but-
anything? But what does that have to do with finding the one person in the fucking video?
It's moving the goalpost.
Yeah. So I was like,
It's changing the
okay,
subject to win an argument.
So
You're not trying to.
this guy, as far left as they come now, as like you can tell from just describing that, and then he's like talking about New Zealand, and I was like, oh, so he's like, New Zealand crushed this, blah blah blah, like just talking about how we should do what New Zealand did because they locked down, they cut off like everything for like, and then they
the
gave
population of like one city in Florida.
well, that's it. Like they gave unemployment to their citizens or whatever they did. I don't know. And I was like, oh, it's almost like they're an isolated island with a population 1/3 that of New York City.
Yeah,
It's
they have like nobody there.
He's like, that has nothing to do with it. I was like, yeah, it has everything to do with it. Do you know who's doing best in these things?
Well, what's
is people
weird,
who are
too-
isolated by either being a peninsula connected to China where there's hard borders, or they're an island. Like those are the only people doing well.
With the same people though that'll talk about follow New Zealand, blah blah blah. They also will preach about how great Cuomo did when he actually statistically did worse than everyone.
Worst.
And it also counteracts their argument anyway because it's such a. I mean, I don't like Cuomo and I think he handled it very wrong to begin with. But also, New York City in and of itself is incredibly densely populated. So if you're gonna have a virus spread, that's the best place for it to happen.
Oh, it's the fucking
it's like-
mecca of viruses.
So it's like even if New York City locked itself down, it would have still spread like fucking wildfire.
Yeah, no, it's retarded to think that there's any way that New York
Don't
City
use
is
the R
getting out
slur.
of this. Oh, my sister's retarded. I
That's
can.
okay.
Um,
I have a black friend. It's okay. I could use the N word.
it's okay. So, well, the other thing is now New Zealand is postponing their election. At least they're talking about it. Whereas if that were to happen here because of the virus,
Oh, it'd be Trump's fault.
it
somehow.
would be the end of the world. Which,
Well, they're
like,
mad
I'm
that
not a
he's-
Trump guy by any means. Like, I think the whole fucking government should implode. But
Yeah.
it's like that is not something that these people would be for. And they're like, oh,
They would have Biden said they have to.
yeah, exactly. If it was the other way around, it'd
Like
be like,
that-
oh, we need to push back the election. If it was Biden and it looked like Trump was going to beat him,
Oh yeah, they'd be all
we
for
need to
it.
push this back.
Well, they're
and-
all for like pushing back any kind of debates,
Yeah, you know,
which is ridiculous. But then at the same time, like Trump, like, and there's already been cases of voter fraud and other types of fraud through USPS.
yeah.
And so Trump's, counteracting that because even Fauci said there's no reason not to vote in person. So now all of a sudden there's protests.
Well, yeah, it's
There's
funny too.
in-person protests about
not being in person to vote.
yeah.
It's funny too because you have the amount of people that go shopping for groceries and opposed to the amount of people that vote is drastically different. So if you have as many voting stations as you have like grocery stores, there's like less than 1/3 of the people that would go shopping for groceries are actually voting. And
Yeah, well,
you
people
can
need groceries.
ask
Nobody
for an
really
exception
votes.
to vote in by mail already. Like you don't need to. You could vote by mail right now.
I think Tim Dillon said that like everyone should be able to go in person, but like if old people who are afraid and like more susceptible to the virus,
Absolutely.
like just go to like the nursing home with a fucking iPad and have them press a button. He's like, why can't you do that? Like, I mean, Rogan's been preaching the whole idea of voting online for a while.
That's retarded too.
I don't know if there's a good solution for it to begin with, but I don't
Look,
really like
First
the idea
of
of a
all,
president. So
yeah, voting is just a fucking bullshit thing. Imposing your beliefs on other people by putting somebody into power, and that was another one of my posts recently. Was people always say the whole, oh, out of 300 million people, we only have these two people. Like these are the best we could do. Yeah, they're the fucking best you could do. Nobody wants that job.
well, except for people who shouldn't have
It's
it.
yes, exactly. It's a terrible job. A, B, nobody should have that job. C, anybody who's actually worthy of having that job is doing way better things and getting way more money for it.
Yeah, well, like I mean, back in the day, it wasn't really a career. It was kind of like you were appointed it, and then I think that they would give you a compensation that was like your current profession beforehand, just while you were in office, because they just needed the right person for the job. It wasn't about who wanted the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Because anybody who wants to have power over somebody else is probably a dangerous person.
Well, I think like there was a Caesar back in Rome who he might have been the first one. I don't remember. But like, he would only become it when they needed a leader, and then he would relinquish the position, and the Senate would
Go
take
back to
control. Yeah,
that's a good
and
way to go about it.
well, that was the ideal. That was the way to run a republic, because sometimes you do need somebody to step forward. But
If they're always there, then they start getting power hungry.
well, even if they're only sometimes there, because that's what happened in Rome.
Well, yeah.
So it's a little retarded. And then also we're way too big. At the very least, in my personal view of this, like obviously my whole view is demolish all forms of government and go to the biggest form of government as being a homeowners association. But as it stands now, we should probably at least divide into 3 countries. We need northeast, southeast, and west.
I always have the idea, because being as like it's supposed to be state and federal, but federal is kind of way overreaching at this point. If it went back to where federal just kind of did what it was supposed to do and just protect the entire country when it was needed, and then the states had more control, I wouldn't even care if a state wanted to be like more communist than another one, because then like, okay, anybody who wants that, go there. Like, give people the freedom to have what they want in their states, and then the whole country could have a very diverse background of people.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I don't think that's ever gonna.
Oh no, it's never going to happen. But I think
my view of the 3 countries isn't ever going to happen. The thing is, this whole thing is just going to implode upon itself at some point.
That's what it always does.
Some countries are too big to govern unless you're a communist, like unless it's a communist dictatorship like China.
Then you can control
and
everybody.
even at that point, they're definitely like losing out to individualism on some levels, like Hong Kong. That whole
that went to shit
like
quick.
yeah, they're putting such a tight clamp on that it's gonna cause issues for them. I don't know when that's going to manifest, but I definitely see
I keep waiting for after all the corona shit, like if China's going to have anything with that, because at this point it's like pretty, I mean, it's not completely clear, but it seems pretty clear that they leaked the virus at least by accident out of a lab.
Well, the WHO is covering that up. So
Well, they're like literally owned by China.
Yeah.
But then like it's just, I don't know, because like our government's looking into it. I know other governments have been like, yeah, looks like
are we actually looking into it?
They said that they were at one point.
No. Well,
there's been doctors
Trump's in charge of it, I'm sure, maybe, because Trump don't like China.
No,
China asshole.
I thought you were gonna do a Trump impression that just became an Asian one.
China. I can't do the Trump.
I'm not very good at it either.
I'm terrible. I could do any other thing Trump says almost, like with some form of accuracy, at least for the standard for a Trump impression. But China, I cannot. I can never. China.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know why it's so difficult.
He does it in such a unique way, and that's why I think
comes
that's
off
why
like he's doing it intentionally to piss everyone off at this point.
Oh yeah, but I also think like that's why it's so attractive to hear him say China, and I just want to hear him say it so many more times.
Let's just go to war, you know?
So you could just say China 50 times in a speech.
But another idea I had, like instead of having one president, what if you had like, let's just say 5, that way it's an odd number. So any kind of like voting on anything, you have an odd man out. And everyone got to pick their representative. So like the DNC would pick who they wanted. Republicans pick theirs, Libertarians get theirs. You could have Green Party. You pick like the 5 parties that seem to make the most sense to represent the widest variety of people, or go up to like, another number that's also odd.
That's like
have a board.
That's like the Netherlands, or
like a parliament.
One of the Nordic countries has a system like that where every party has a representation in it, and there's just one main party, and it's what do they call it? It's like a coalition, and the coalitions can work with each other and be like, okay, well, we want to work with you, so we'll make you the majority leader, and we'll all be part of the the under I don't know what you call it, but the other parties that have their main leaders, which have a say, but the overall say goes to the majority leader or something.
Can they just constantly change the majority leader?
Well, that's all left to the vote. And so like the Communist Party will be like, okay, well, we'll throw our votes to the Democrat. I don't know the names of their parties
Yeah,
over there,
just
but
for an example.
for example, yeah, exactly. And that's what usually happens there. They have like coalitions between the parties, and then the parties work together. But like, obviously the Communist Party wants their agenda slightly different than what the
Well, everyone's
Labor
going to want
Party.
their own, but then it also forces them to work together to get somewhere because they have to.
Yeah,
As
but
opposed to right now, they still do it. It's just behind our backs, and it's about more elite common ground than anything
yeah,
else.
I don't see the American system ever. Well,
I don't see it changing.
here's the thing. The American system is brilliant in the way that it wasn't made to change. It was made to stay the same for as long as possible. It's very hard to implement change, and that's good for the most part.
Well, it was also meant to have a small government, and the government's progressively gotten larger, so it's already changed. It's just changed in the wrong direction.
So, well, that change was gradual. It started in the 1920s, started in 1913, and like,
I'd say it started before that. I'd say it started with Lincoln.
well, you can make that argument, but after Lincoln, Grant really repealed a lot of the stuff he did, and
Which is weird.
The suspension of habeas corpus was very temporary. So maybe you could argue that the precedent for it was started then, but it wasn't really
implemented.
followed through on. Yeah.
Well, 1913 and stuff, that's right around the time, if not the year that they installed the
That's the income tax.
yeah, the income tax. So
yes, and that was Jekyll Isle.
but without that, how would we have roads, Stephan?
I don't know.
I'm really
there was
fucking sick of
no
hearing
roads
that.
before that.
Yeah, there weren't not one. Well, I got into an argument the other day with my my brother's ex-boyfriend. So because my brother's guy, I could say fag. And he's the guy's a fucking, I hate him anyway, but he's just a bad person. And he was arguing.
They tend to be.
Well, what, gays? Yeah. Well, he's like, it's ridiculous because he actually comes from a family of money. Like, he's like one of the more wealthy people I've ever met, and he'll, preach the same liberal bullshit. It's, of course, it's like a fucking white dude with money that's fucking preaching for
taking other people's money.
Yeah. But like, he was saying something like, without like the income tax, like, how do we pay for roads or fire departments or police? I'm like, okay, well,
95% of fire departments are voluntary.
Well, and on top of that, they're also not paid for with income tax because that would be a federal
property tax.
Yeah. So I was like, you're not even arguing about the right tax.
Well, here's the thing, and like that's another argument people always bring up is the fire department, police departments, all that. How do you pay for all that?
Privatize it.
Well, here's the thing. It's very easy to privatize it. Like, how would poor people afford to pay for police departments? No, that's not even. It's easier than that. The people who own the property that rent it to the poor people, they want their property protected.
Well, so it'd be like a homeowners association.
It would be somewhat like that, but let's even say in the Bronx. All right, so on this block, there's a bunch of tenement buildings, but the poor people can't afford to pay for the police. Oh, but who owns the building?
Who doesn't want it
all those
destroyed?
people that own the buildings, they don't want their property being destroyed. They might want it to be a little more affordable so they don't pay as much probably for police protection. But if you have a bunch of people who own buildings around a certain area, they all want to protect their property. It's very easy for the privatization of police to work. It's not as crazy as people think it is.
Well, that would also kind of help with the police brutality issue, would it not? Because then police aren't going to be doing things that they're not hired to do.
Yes.
And there wouldn't be this incentivization to pull people over and give them speeding tickets to justify your job.
Collecting,
yeah. It would kind of solve a lot of the issues that people have an issue with. But then once you bring it up, all of a sudden you're a fucking crazy person.
Yeah. And well, here's the other part of it is anything that the police do is reflective of what the community actually wants, in opposed to what the mayor just directs downward, or governor. Yeah. So in a way, it's like, okay, well, these police are implementing a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit in our community. We don't think that's necessary. We think we need 35 miles per hour. You either negotiate with the person that you're paying to do this, because you're directly paying. You can cancel your service with them at any time. So they want to please you. So they'll either enforce it at 35 or you go, all right, this other company, we can move them in, and then they'll take over.
And they'll do what we ask them to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, rich people already have private security. So really it's just providing it for poor people.
Well, also there's also examples of private police. Co-op City in the Bronx has private police. They're armed. They're trained police officers, but they're private. They belong to Co-op City, and then also Detroit has a private police force that actually has certain strategies to actually deter crime, in opposed to
React to it.
react to it. Exactly. They have the people that pay them. They install cameras on their houses for their purposes, facing out from the house, so they're not recording you, they're recording what happens on the street. And people don't want to commit crimes in front of cameras.
Not usually, yeah.
Yeah, and they have like other strategies too. That's just one that I remember them talking about when I listened to the podcast that they're discussing on Tom Woods' podcast.
I never checked that out. Who exactly is Tom Woods?
Tom Woods is he's a libertarian. I don't know if he considers himself an anarcho-capitalist. He's very
A lot of them do.
wish-washy with that. He's very friendly with anarcho-capitalists, and I'd assume he is at this point.
Is he not as aggressive as Young Ripper?
He's not. Oh no. I think he's had
Eric July
on his podcast, but
Eric's is very aggressive.
He's super anarcho-capitalist, and Dave Smith's definitely had Eric July on, and Dave Smith and Tom Woods are very good friends at this point, I think. And I think Eric July's got a lot of good ideas. I watch his show sometimes, and
it just got. I used to watch it a lot more, and then it's like you could tell he's just going for content now. So it's like every day he's bitching about something.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. Like, I know what he
got trapped in the cycle too, I feel.
Well, that's the cycle of YouTube. YouTube's algorithm forces you to do that shit, and it's annoying. But I also just know what he's going to say for the most part. There's some things where like I'll watch and I'll be like, oh, this is interesting.
That also means he's very stern on his beliefs, and he doesn't constantly change what he's saying to appeal to other people. He's saying what he believes and sticks to it.
I agree with that. What I've been finding myself more attracted to is liberals that don't think like liberals, and that's like Glenn Loury, John McWhorter, Coleman Hughes. They're these black intellectuals that are very, they're not with the Black Lives Matter movement, and they have their reasonings. And if you listen to them, they're very well thought through, very concise, and they have written books about the subject. They're very like, I love listening to John McWhorter speak specifically. Everything he says is so eloquently worded that it's like almost like audio porn. Like,
I have to check it out. I don't know about any of these guys.
He's great. They're liberals by all means. Like,
progressive, I guess.
No, they're not progressives.
Would they be like Jordan Peterson type liberal?
Classical
liberal, or whatever he calls it?
They disagree with Peterson on some stuff, but
that's not like that vein of liberalism.
John McWhorter supports like social welfare and stuff like that, and I don't know if his views changed on this over time, because he seems have different views. I watched older videos of him after I've watched newer videos of him. So in his older videos, he said he believes affirmative action should exist, but not towards black people specifically, or towards people of color, but towards people who come from destitute backgrounds. So like anybody
have a shitty background,
like didn't have the advantages of being
that kind of worked with my wife. The program that she had for her full ride scholarship to college was you had to have good grades, but they were specifically looking for kids that had a rougher background or came from like a poor family or moved around a lot. So it had a lot of colored people or Hispanic, whatever you want to call them. And she was like the one white kid in it, but they still took a white kid. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's always good. Exist. And I think another thing he was saying, like one of the things they talk about a lot is how affirmative action, or at least the way some institutions implement it, they actually disadvantage black people, because a person who would do perfectly well at, let's say, UPenn, it's not Ivy League, but it's still a higher end school. they would do perfectly well there, but they get accepted to Harvard.
and they
And
fail out.
Yeah, they can't keep up with the workload as well as they could have at UPenn, and there's a lot of other things, and that actually ruins their career because they did so poorly at Harvard. And if they get accepted to Harvard, who's not going to go to Harvard?
Mm-hmm. Probably an Asian.
Yeah, they'll go to Columbia.
Well, I think it was actually Harvard specifically. They said they literally just straight up said well, we want to have a very diverse campus. So they just stopped letting certain Asians in. They wouldn't let white people in.
They have that lawsuit going against them now.
Probably for
I
a good
think
reason.
there's only 2 Ivy Leagues that aren't doing that. I think that haven't actually been named in a lawsuit like that or something. And I think Columbia is one of them. I don't think they have the same policy that Harvard has, and I think Brown does have the same as Harvard. I'm not completely sure.
Brown, I thought, was very much primarily people of color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's where. So that's the other thing
the point of that college.
John McWhorter is he's a teacher at Columbia, and Glenn Lowry is a teacher at Brown, and they're both very intelligent. Glenn Lowry is a economist. He's a neoliberal economist, so he's basically a libertarian, but to some degree not. And John McWhorter's a liberal who teaches in New York City. But that
sounds weird.
Yeah, for academics
a liberal in New York City
to disagree. Well, that too. Yeah. No, but it is weird to have academics disagree with the
status quo that they've
yes,
given.
Exactly. And well, in a way, they are benefited by tenure, that they can't be fired for their views. But
I mean, there's people like Weinstein. I think he had tenure and didn't really pan out for him.
That just exploded all over itself. It's harder to fire a black guy with tenure than.
Oh yeah. I don't know if he got fired. I think he left, but I can't remember entirely how the story went.
I don't know the Weinstein story. I'm not particularly a big fan of them. I know a lot of people talk to me about them, and I've watched their podcasts with Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that's all I've watched.
And I've watched Weinstein's podcast when he actually had Glenn Lowry and John McWhorter and Coleman Hughes on with a bunch of other black intellectuals to discuss.
At the same time?
Yeah, this is all at the same time.
That would have been kind of annoying, I think.
A Zoom call. It wasn't actually. They were very good, and they each person took their time, and they all had their time to say their piece.
I still think I'd prefer to have isolated episodes, maybe 2 or 3.
He does. He has isolated episodes with McWhorter, I think, but they, it's funny because since I'm dating Sabrina, she's half black. My mom, who's a lifelong conservative, and never once has she ever not towed the Fox News line. All of a sudden now, it's like, oh, I care about black issues. I'm like, where is this coming from? And so
when that white guilt coming out.
Yeah, exactly. The thing in what was it? Was it Georgia with
when they pulled over and shot the dude?
The kid that was breaking into the house.
It was a construction zone.
Yeah.
Probably the idea is that he's maybe scouting it.
So yeah, exactly. And you watch videos of that kid, and that kid, say what you will about what happened. It was messed up, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. But that kid wasn't exactly doing himself any favors.
No, but I still don't think citizens should just pull up with a shotgun and start blasting.
For sure. I agree with that. You should not just be brandishing shotguns at some person that's, walking around. So my mom, when that first happened, I don't know where she got the line from, but it was like, oh, look, they just killed. I don't want my grandson being killed just because he's black. And I was like,
she's not even pregnant yet.
Yeah, well, that's it. She's already thinking about grandkids, but at the same time, it's
that's conservative.
That's not gonna happen because that kid was not raised right. B, I doubt the kid was killed just because he's black.
I didn't really read up on the story too well, but it didn't sound like race wasn't involved.
I'm sure
it had a part.
I'm sure it had a part. I would never deny that in some situations it's easy to see that race plays a part.
Should
But
just influence their decision making. I don't think it was the final decision.
if a white kid was dressed the same way as that kid and was in and out of that building multiple times, most of the time at night, and was in there, and they walked up on him the same way they walked up on, I don't remember the kid's name. I can't.
I have to look it up. I'm
The
too
other
far
kid.
from my keyboard.
They walked up on the white kid the same way they walked up on the black kid. It would be just as ill-justified. It wouldn't be okay, but there wouldn't be any discussion as to whether it was racist or not, because the kid's white.
Well, now there's the whole thing. And so this will actually probably help in the idea of not remembering that kid's name. I can't remember this kid's name either. The 5-year-old that was shot in the head.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I don't care. Like,
well, I mean, I don't not care, but
I don't care because we shouldn't care, and that's the problem.
Well,
like,
Hooks had a whole thing. Did you ever check out Bill Hooks back in the day when he was alive?
Not really. I was
stand up.
Yeah.
But he he had a whole bit about turn on the news. It's like people dying here, racism over there, blah blah blah. All this shit's going on, and you open up your window and there's like birds chirping and all this shit. It's like, where is it at? So in that sense, I agree. But what I've been getting mad about is I've seen a lot of people posting, like people were sharing, like, remember the kid's name or whatever, because it was the idea of a fucking 5-year-old getting shot in the head is disgusting.
Terrible. Yeah.
But they're sharing that because it didn't, the mainstream media didn't give a shit. Because and I'm reading a book on mainstream media anyway, and it's not about what mainstream media does now anyway. It's literally just all about being divisive, which is why Trump's always talked about, because he's such a divisive figure. Either people are generally for him or against him. So no matter what you post about Trump, you're going to get the divisiveness, which sells papers. So it's a Matt Taibbi book called Hate Inc. For anybody interested.
Oh.
Dave Namry, a fellow
He's
comic.
Good.
Yeah, he told me to read it. I like it so far. But anyway, I've seen arguments where people are now making it out like if you share the thing saying like the media is not covering this kid being killed, that you're just trying to mask your own racism. And I think that's a fucking blanket statement and a half. Because I mean, there are definitely people who are like, see, it happened to a black guy killed a white kid. In that sense, like, yeah, maybe those people are masking their racism. But I've seen other people who are literally just like, how come the media will cover a black kid getting killed, but they won't cover a white kid getting killed? And in that sense, I think that they're pulling up a decent point in the fact that, like, again, well, I already am aware of it. It's about being divisive, but
yeah,
it's about catering to a movement and shitting on other people's movements.
Yeah, the thing is, people will say it's about the corporatization of news media. It's about
that didn't help.
The 24-hour news cycle. It's about the left-right paradigm, and I honestly, I've grown so cynical over the last year and a half. I used to care, and I can't. It's too much energy.
I'm more just interested in learning about why things are the way they are.
My mom,
no hope for change, though.
Literally watches Fox News almost every hour that she's awake.
That's crazy.
And she falls asleep to it. The only time she stops is my dad's like, I'm watching something else. Turn this the fuck off. And the thing is, like, but there's also some aspect to where you want to inform yourself, and you have to watch news. Like, sometimes I'll watch like Ben Shapiro cover stuff. I'll watch Jimmy Dore cover stuff. And I feel like that's an interesting contrast to each other, because Jimmy Dore is a full-blown communist. But and I don't.
And Ben Shapiro's wife has a dry pussy.
This wet ass pussy is nowhere near Ben Shapiro. And
that poor guy.
That was the funniest thing. This is the one time I decided not to watch Ben Shapiro, because I was like, oh, he's talking about fucking Cardi B. I don't want to watch this. Turned it off. And then it's the biggest meme later in the day. And I'm
Rogan
like, what
even
the
said,
fuck?
he's like, stick to your lane, bro. Stick to your lane.
But and Sabrina will even get upset with me just because I'm watching something for 10 minutes. And I'm like, why can't I watch it? She's so disconnected from it. It's good in a way, but it's funny because
but then when people start bitching about it,
oh yeah, well, I hate getting bitched at for trying to inform myself, sure. But she's been watching a little bit of Candace Owens, and while I don't agree with Candace Owens, it's a good introduction to that type of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, she said some things I agree with, but at the same time, she goes hard in the.
Oh,
She's, I mean, just a Fox News person. So,
she's not even. She's worse than a Fox News person. She's a Turning Point USA person,
oh, I thought
and
she was with Fox at one point.
she might have been, but she's with Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk is just the most insufferable asshole who ever tried to represent capitalism, and
There's a lot of
it's
them.
absolutely
A lot
infuriating.
of those people don't really represent capitalism, though. They almost entirely support corporatism.
Corporatism.
Yeah,
He's somewhat more along true conservatism line, which is like capitalism and blah blah blah, but he does not actually adhere to facts. He adheres to his own facts, and his manner of debate is just it makes a bad look for people who are trying to actually promote capitalism.
but debating's fallen off the fucking rails pretty
Debating's
hard.
stupid anyway. Nobody learns anything.
Well, when I did it in college, it was pretty helpful because what we would do is in my criminology class, she would divide the class, and like it was just randomly debate, like it depending on whoever sat where that day because it was like a theater type setup class.
Yeah.
She'd just cut it down the middle, and she was like, "All right, you're on this side, you're on this side, and it doesn't matter what you think." Like, because like I had to do, and then she'd switch you after. So no matter what, you had to like we were doing prostitution at one point.
Yeah.
And it was funny too just to see how it worked because there was a kid who I know also thought like it shouldn't be illegal, and I was arguing the side like it should be legal, like prostitution shouldn't be, you shouldn't be in trouble for it.
Yeah.
But then just the idea that you're supposed to stand up for a side, it was funny to see people just like they start to get heated because like they're just losing an argument, and it was like weird to just be like, oh, even though like you don't even agree with what you're saying, the fact that you're losing is getting you all steamed up.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, I had a really good teacher, Mr. Garan. He was my government teacher, and he would always show like South Park episodes in class. He'd show interesting stuff.
Probably got away with that.
Yeah, he was good with it. He used to bring his own personal laptop in and have a projector and just put it right on.
Black out the windows, lock the door.
That's it. But he would pick specific episodes where it wasn't too crazy, and it's mostly like political episodes. But we would have debates in class, and I would always, for the most part, I would stick with what I was. I was a conservative back then, and that's what I believed. So I had hardline views on stuff like abortion and all that. And I chose to debate for abortion instead of against it, because like he didn't do the thing where you had to do both sides. You would just pick which one, and he knew I was against abortion, and like he knows my political lines a little bit, and you know, he was a really good teacher with me. It's funny, when I was in middle school, he came to homeschool me for a couple of days because I got suspended, but that's a different story. But I debated for abortion, even though I didn't believe in it, because back then, like I wholeheartedly believed that if you want to be able to debate your point, you have to be able to debate the other point just as well.
Still makes sense. I mean, if you don't know what you're talking about entirely, how are you supposed to talk against it?
Yeah. And
That's
you know,
like when that kid was saying that income tax pays for police.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like there are some times where I'll get into a little debate where I don't know all of the facts, but like sometimes you have to get into debates where you're going to lose because you got to learn the facts that way.
You have to be humbled.
Yeah. So, and I've definitely like had that happen a couple times throughout Facebook debates, which is just the worst, which is why I stopped posting on
They
Facebook.
almost always dissolve into just name calling. So
yeah, it's the most retarded thing ever because you're not in person. Nobody's gonna like fight like for real. So you could just start doing
that's the
whatever
weird
you
thing.
want.
Dude, I got into one not that long ago, and this kid literally like ended up like talking about my kids and shit. And I was like, you know that like we live in the same town, right? Like this isn't just Facebook. Like we went to school together, and I see you around.
My kids.
Yeah, and like he like didn't know what to say. I was like, I'm not saying I'm going to do anything, but in the event that I was to do something, you do understand that we do actually know each other.
Yeah.
And like, why would you say something like that? And I was like, I don't. People are fucking.
Yeah, it's Facebook is toxic in that way, and I just don't see why people put so much effort into that. I used to do it.
Pulls me in. It's like heroin.
I agree. I can't completely argue against it because I've been there and I've done that. I've been like the person who has 120 comment debates,
Hmm.
and now it's just like, do I really want to spend 3 hours with the same person who's not going to change their view? They're going to Google whatever they need to justify what they're saying. Well, I'm going to Google whatever I need
Hmm.
to justify what I'm saying. And it's not going to go anywhere.
I've
And
just been getting
at the
mad.
end of the day, it's just going to turn into us being less of friends because of this.
Yeah, well,
And
that definitely happens.
and really what happened was there's one, so the tipping point was actually COVID, like before it blew up into what it is. There's a friend of mine who, like, I guess we're not really friends now, but spoiler
Thanks,
alert.
Facebook.
Spoiler alert. So before anybody knew anything about it, he was quoting the John Hopkins like things and all that stuff that they were saying, like 2 million
Is this the kid
dead.
I was involved?
Yeah, you got involved with it at the
Yeah,
end.
okay.
So he, we were arguing about it, like, oh, this is stupid and blah blah blah. And he's like, this is serious and blah blah blah. And yeah, that's when I told you to make the comment about his dad. But yeah, so I was just like, yeah, this is so insufferable. And like, just because we disagree on this, like, one of us is going to be proven right sooner or later. So why does it have to devolve into this whole thing? Like,
He
the
just
thing
seemed
is,
like an angry person to begin with, though.
yes, exactly. And that's what it was. Like,
That's what a lot of those things
overall
are.
is they're just angry. And that was more of what I was arguing against, is the people who are like freaking out so bad that, and it was specifically actually about him when I first posted that, because like he was posting day and night about it, and anybody who I saw in his comments that said anything otherwise was demonized and just made
His
into
bully
a
tactics,
horrible person.
trying to force people to believe in what you believe.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, he wound up being right in a way, even though I still think it's kind of bullshit.
I think most people do.
Yeah, like it
At least most
was
people I've
never
talked
going to
to.
kill 2 million people. It was never going to kill 2 million people, which is what he was posting. So it, like, he he unfriended me after that whole fucking crazy debate, and then maybe a month and a half into quarantine, or into whatever you want to call it, uh,
Lockdown.
lockdown, he messaged me and he's like, I hope you're doing all right. I just want, like, it was a I told you so kind of
He's trying to
message.
act like he's nice.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, oh, I honestly hope you're doing all right. Your family's well, blah blah blah. And I was like, seriously, dude? Like, what? I was like, dude, you unfriended me over you losing your shit and threatening to fight my
Like 3 different
friends.
people.
Yeah, threatening to fight my friends who train jujitsu and are all black belts and would kick your ass, and then you threaten to shoot them with a sniper or something,
Yeah.
and then you unfriend me because I'm toxic. Like,
Well, I had a kid recently. This is why, like, some of the debates are they drive me insane. It's because one of the things about it is, like, I stopped going on to other people's posts for the most part. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I try my best. Sometimes, like, something will be so stupid.
You have to say something.
Yeah, in which I really don't have to, but and I really shouldn't. But it'll catch me sometimes.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
But I've been posting things. And because my dad kind of has this ideology, even though he'll attack me on my post sometimes. But he's kind of stopped at that as well. Is he'll post his things, and if you want to comment on his stuff, then he's like, "Well, I guess you're talking to me now." But like, he's like, "I won't go to other people's pages. Go ahead and share what you want to share. That's what you believe. That's fine. I'm not going to argue with what you believe. But if you're going to argue with me on my page, then that's a different thing." So I'm trying to stick to that. But even then, I'm trying to find a way to, like, not even get into it, because there's this kid I went to school with. He barely made it out of school. He literally knocked up the biggest slut in his grade. Her parents got him an apartment. Well, they got them both like an apartment or a house or some shit. Gave him a job out in like Long Island or whatever, and now they act like they're better than everyone else because mommy and daddy got them in this place. And they literally, the one time we got into an argument, and I said something about him barely getting out of high school, and they were like, "Well, we live in Long Island. The education out here is way better. You graduated from Port." I'm like, "We literally all graduated from Port." Like, I don't know, but the last argument that it got really bad with him, it was over, well, twice now, over how there's research showing that the protests couldn't have spread the virus. And I'm like, that literally doesn't make sense. And he read the article that I posted the one time. He's like, did you even read the article? Granted, it says it's unproven, but if you just read the article, it tells you the science behind how it wouldn't have. I'm like, you just said, in what you just said it was unproven, which means it's literally just an opinion.
Not science.
You're taking what you saw and turning it to your own bias. And like the point in science is that it's done over and over and over again to where it's indisputable.
Yep.
That's not happening. This is clearly about the media being divisive again, which goes back to the Matt Taibbi book.
I think we need to get some of the crowd scientists that looked over Trump's crowds when he got inaugurated to see if they know if these crowds are spreading the virus. That was one of the funniest things. Do you follow Michael Malice?
No. I know the name though.
Yeah, Michael Malice is great. He's an anarchist.
Oh no. Yeah, I know him. He's he always posts crazy shit on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He's hilarious.
He's been on Rogan. I love him on Rogan.
He is on Rogan. Yeah, he's been on Rogan. He's great. And one of his posts when that happened was because there's a news article that says crowd scientists look into Trump's inauguration crowds, and he goes, "Fuck you, Dad. I'm going to be a crowd scientist. You watch."
I mean, how the shit he posts is
that was
like
a paraphrase, by the way, but that's basically the idea.
Almost every tweet I see from him is like the perfect like satire on the situation.
Yes.
He's really good at what he does.
He's got a great mind for just flipping things in an interesting way in a tweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which because like you're kind of limited, and he does it in even like less than what he could do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He's really fun with that stuff.
Yeah, like when Tulsi Gabbard
shit on Harris.
He made a tweet that was like, "This, of course, the Hawaiian roasted the pig," or something like that. Like I'm terribly misquoting it, and he would be pissed if he heard it, but he's never going to hear this anyway. But
thanks, man.
Yeah, it's like this is not the first time a Hawaiian roasted a pig or something like that.
Well, the whole thing now is ridiculous too, because that's the other thing. The same kid who was like, arguing that because during the protests and riots, less people went outside because in the city there's millions of people, but most of them stayed inside because of the protests and riots. Like that doesn't. You're fucking. You should shut up.
During war, most people don't die.
Yeah, that's true too. Actually. Well, did you see Shapiro last time he was on
Rogan?
And he's like mostly peaceful protest. He's like OJ was mostly peaceful
the day he killed
2 people.
Yeah,
but
Joe Rogan kept saying that in every episode after that.
Yeah,
like,
he does that.
That's like so painful. I'm like, Joe.
He repeats things a lot, but I get over it.
Yeah,
I watch his show for the guests. I like him too, but
yeah, no, I always I choose which ones I watch because of who's on, and
I like every comic he has on. For the most part,
I don't watch the comics honestly. I don't.
I do comedy, so it's like interesting for me.
Yeah, I watch certain comics. Like I love Tim Dillon.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Dillon's hilarious.
Well, he's just ridiculous.
His political commentary is hilarious too. You ever see his sketch when he was pretending to be Meghan McCain?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, that was my favorite one.
See, now you sound like Rogan. Because he brought that up like 1,000 episodes in a row too.
Oh yeah, he definitely did bring that one.
That one's great though. I only fuck daddy.
Yeah.
Dude, fucking daddy's corpse.
Fucking corpse.
But that same kid that was bitching about the protests and how they didn't spread anything because I am a conspiracy theorist that would think that the CDC's information is correct. And how you spread a virus.
How dare you?
Which I actually don't even totally believe that, but he was arguing about because I posted some shit about Harris because the second she was nominated I was like, this is a joke, and
it's terrible. It was the worst move that he could have possibly
I don't think they really my friend had a fear that they're intentionally like losing this,
yeah, and
then they're gonna just fucking make Trump's next 4 years miserable toward no matter who they pick next. So probably Hillary Clinton at 94 like to push her in for president in the next election. But hopefully before then, Trump identifies as a woman so we could finally have a first female president.
Yeah, and then he's a different person so he could get elected because he's going to be...
Oh, wow, that's true.
He's going to be... what's a fucking female? Diana Trump.
Yeah, that would work. I also heard... I haven't looked too far into it, but...
Was a...
Dead name?
Dead name. Don't dead name Trump. That's not the... It's not the same person. He's a new person, so...
Well, I also saw... I haven't
reelected.
I haven't looked into it to see how true it is. But when you are impeached, but it doesn't go all the way through, that you could actually go for a third term because that term is null and void.
Even if that was true, it would be the dumbest thing to do.
I could see him. I mean, I'll just say it again. I don't know if I said it on the podcast before. I'm pretty sure that at the end of his second term, if he gets reelected, which I still think he probably will be, even though I feel like his chances are lower.
They're lower than against Hillary, yeah.
But if he gets reelected, I think that by about the end of his second term, that's when the aliens hit, and he's like, "Remember Space Force and how I did that?" And he's gonna be wearing a Space Marine outfit with a cigar, and he's just gonna become Lord Emperor Trump, and he's just gonna run the world. I think that's gonna happen because every day I
So
put the simulations
you're
breaking
assuming
down.
the 2020 version of Watchmen happens.
Oh sure, I haven't. Is that is that what's happening in like the newer show or whatever?
No. I'm just saying like that's essentially what happened with Nixon is like, oh
yeah, that's true.
I won the war against the biggest threat. Dr. Manhattan's my guy. And
Well, kind of happened in World War II, didn't it? Didn't he have a third term there?
Well, FDR. Yeah, well, he's why we made the rule.
Yeah.
That
he was a what?
He's a liberal progressive.
Yeah, he's a Democrat who put Japanese in internment camps.
Yeah,
but
we don't talk about that.
No, we can go back to this kid that I hate. He was defending Kamala Harris's pick because I posted things. I like if you were gonna have to go with like a liberal candidate, I would have liked to see Tulsi. Even Andrew Yang, I think, would have been a substantially better pick than what they have. But I like Tulsi Gabbard in a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
not overall, but I prefer her substantially, and I like the fact that she just, I think she actually has a good moral compass, and I feel like she has a stern backbone.
I agree with that.
Like with Bernie when he like seceded and was like, "Oh, okay, I endorse Hillary." I'm like, "All right, you're fucking done. You're dead."
Well,
you're
Tulsi also endorsed Biden.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she did, I believe. But at the same time, like I
hate that shit. The second you do that, you're dead to me.
Yeah,
you lost your backbone.
I don't know. I don't feel strongly about any of them.
Well, no,
but I do believe Tulsi's moral compass is in the right direction. But she was never going to get picked.
No, but
the thing is, if I could have picked the worst person that was of the picks for vice president, it would have been Kamala Harris.
Oh yeah, everyone was joking about it.
Yeah, if I had
or
to say,
Hillary, I think would have been worse. But
well, she wasn't up there with the picks. Like the people that were actually being considered were Kamala Harris, Susan Rice.
Was Pocahontas on
there? Yeah, Elizabeth Warren was on there. And I don't think she was actually in it, but that Georgia senator or whatever her name is. But she wasn't really in there. She was just trying to
Harris really shouldn't have been. But my thing was
Harris shouldn't have been.
She has a horrible track record. And like I posted some things like immediately after about like the things that Tulsi said. The one was actually like Tulsi's quote. And the kid's like, it was something about like how many like marijuana arrests it was. Because the number is different depending on what post you share. Like some of it's like 1,800, some of it's 1,900, sometimes like 1,500. Whichever one it was, he's like, where is there any evidence that she put anybody in jail for marijuana and blah, blah, blah. I was like, do you not even know who the fuck she is? I was like, just look into her. I posted a link. I was like, it's literally her track record as a DA. I was like, just look at her numbers. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, she also like blocked fucking DNA evidence from being done.
To keep victim.
Yeah, to have her record. I mean, which isn't anywhere near uncommon. That's another issue in our justice system.
Yeah.
But I was like, you're like straight up like fucking how much do you love Kool-Aid? Like, I don't understand.
It's ridiculous how far people will bend their views. Like when Bernie was running and all that, like anything they could do to shit on Kamala Harris was there. They were like talking all this shit, like, oh, she's been doing this with marijuana, blah, blah, like all these people locked up. And now because the pick is Biden and his pick is Kamala, it's like,
vote blue no matter who.
Don't say that about Kamala.
Yeah. Well, even the people, this is what I kind of got mad about with these two guests that were on Rogan recently. They like get innocent people out of jail. I forget their names currently, but it was a good podcast.
Yeah.
But they're like, we think that you should, they basically straight up were like, you should vote blue no matter who. They're like, we just think that Trump is so bad, it doesn't matter who their pick is. You should just go with the Democrats. But that being said, and then they go in like all the horrible shit that Kamala Harris did. I'm like,
then why?
Yeah. So I didn't like that part of it, but I like what they do.
Trump is actually not bad on police reform for a Republican, especially. And he's
basically a Democrat
for the most part. But he, he's pardoned quite a few people that were in jail.
Maybe Snowden soon
with the assistance from Kim Kardashian, weirdly enough.
Yeah,
But
which is why I stopped kind of shitting on her too. I was like, fuck it, she's done more for people than I have.
yeah, for sure. And as much as people can criticize them for a lot of stuff, like that's the other thing. Like I honestly, I stopped caring about criticizing presidents and all of that shit. Like Obama, he did a bunch of terrible shit. He was an awful human being, but every single person who's president's an awful human being. Like, it's part of the nature of being a president.
I don't think it's even entirely them. I don't think that they have as much power as people like to think they do.
They don't have power.
They're really just a figurehead.
Well, it's not even that. They don't have power because they don't. The only thing that they have power over, and it could be argued that this is ultimate power, is attitude. They can change the attitude of a country, and Trump's done it. Obama did it. Bush did it inversely.
Oh, mostly Cheney, I think.
He
was like Cheney's little puppet.
Well, no, I'm not saying that.
Attitude-wise?
Attitude-wise. I would say...
Very docile, I felt.
Well, that's it. People hated Bush, so he inversely changed the attitude. Obama changed the attitude of people to be more towards the, like, oh, black people are victims kind of stuff.
Yeah, he made the race thing an issue again.
Yeah, and Trump is changing the attitude of the country to just be like, fuck you. Like...
Or just divisive in general. Yeah.
And, Bill Clinton made everybody kind of like relaxed.
Jobs.
Yeah. Like just kind of like, chilled out. Even
Except
though
for the women he was raping.
He was a terrible, awful human being. But the attitude of the country was, oh, we're living good. There's a couple of like proxy wars and shit, but who cares?
Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't anything big popping off until right after.
No, yeah, exactly.
But just to make sure we get you out of here on time, it's 12:05. So
yeah,
I'll wrap this up.
We'll wrap it up.
It's like a good hour.
Yeah, it was
that was fun. I wouldn't mind having you back on again. That was fun.
Yeah.
Bye, peoples.
Bye-bye.